Hi, I'm Dr. Latcher from Spring Hill Equine and the podcast Straight from the Horse Doctor's Mouth. And today we're going to talk about how to make sure that you're ready to hold your horse for all kinds of different veterinary exams. About having a hold of your horse while the vet is doing just a basic physical exam. So we're going to simulate that here with Justin holding Kai. And some things you want to do is, if you notice he's got the lead rope a bit too tight here, I want to make sure they have a little bit of room. The next thing he's done is we have a nice loop here so that he can trip himself. So you want to make sure that you have, this is where you follow all the rules, right? And I always loop my rope like that and hold it just like that so that you don't have a big loop that you can trip over, and you don't have the lead rope wrapped around your hand in any way. The next thing we want as the holder is that they're making sure that the horse holds still. You know, that's not always the easiest thing to do while we walk around and do our thing. So we do not want to let the horse wander off and eat. We want to make sure that we keep them close and standing where we're trying to do our exam. The next big thing that the holder does is they stay on the same side as me. So as I come over here, Justin is in the correct place here. I'm gonna come down her side. I'd listen to her heart, listen to lungs, gut sounds, potentially take her temperature. Notice that on Kai here, I can actually take my hand under her tail and take her temperature. This is a skill that a lot of horses do not have, and I really wish that every horse on the planet knew how to have their temperature taken. The next skill that I wish every horse on the planet had, and you'd be surprised the ones that don't, is the ability for me to pick up all 4 feet and look at them. And I can do that with relative nonchalance. You know, I'm not worried for my life in any way. I'm just moving around and picking up legs. As I switch sides, Justin's going to stay on the same side as me. Justin's going to stay on the same side as me so that he's always with me to know what the horse is doing. The other big thing that does as the veterinarian is if she goes to do something with this hind leg, she's going to bring that hip. What she's going to do is she's going to do sort of this number to pick up a leg at me. If you're the person standing there holding their head and you're on the same side as me, your instinct is always to pull the head towards you. You don't even have to think about it. So you pull that head towards you, and what happens? The hind end moves away. And that's exactly what we want from a safety standpoint. So very, very, very important that the holder is always on the same side of me. They're also aware of where I am, and they're not on their phone talking, texting, or posting on Facebook. So those are the big things from a holder during a routine exam. So let's talk about a couple of things that can help your horse be better for the routine exam for your veterinarian. And one is standing still. I'm a huge proponent, if you guys have listened to any of the podcasts, of clicker training. And so let's talk about clicker training. So you can see that Kai here has been clicker trained because she was just like, okay, you clicked, where's my treat? And the basics are you click, give a little treat, and this is just some pellets. That's literally 4 pellets. You don't need a lot. In fact, most people, the mistake they make is giving them too much food. I'm gonna let her chew for a minute, get a feel of that, and see how she gets to be a little bit of a treat hound. You can stop that by just saying, no. Stay out of my space while I'm doing this. And then I'm gonna click and treat again. The other way you can prevent a little bit of the treat houndiness is if you ask them they get their treat kind of over this way. So now I'm gonna ask her to do things, and I'm gonna reward that. And when I say do things, it may be as simple as she's standing here, she's quiet, she's doing what I'm asking, I'm going to click and reward that. It may be I'm going to ask her to back up just a little bit and put some pressure. Boop, that's all I wanted. So again, I keep things super simple and easy because where I really want to use clicker training is on the horse who's difficult for shots. And that you can prepare your horse for with a ballpoint pen. So the way that I do that is I have my clicker, my rope, and I will let the rope fall kind of just to the ground, careful that I have it out of the way so I don't step on it. I'm going to give her a little bit of room with her head. She's not bad for shots, so that's why she's being a little bit of a treat hound here. And I'm going to take my ballpoint pen and I'm going to poke right where I want to give a shot. She's not reacting, so I'm going to click and then reward. Now, if she was reacting, I would hold my pen here until I got even the slightest bit of relaxation, and then I would click again. So you see where she just dropped her head there? So I said, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. In horses who are really needle shy, what you tend to get is that they're like, don't do this. And so on those guys, you know, they go from here to even here. You give them a click. That's all they need. And you're rewarding that moment. Doesn't take long and off they go. Remember to talk with your veterinarian though about all the places they may give a shot. For example, we give our vaccines in this area. Good girl. But that's not all we do, right? So we may be doing a shot on the jugular vein, and I have to do the same thing again, right? So I'm practicing that I'm touching the jugular vein, I'm poking the vein, I'm asking her to relax, not shake her head. So you can see her doing some evasive behaviors. I'm just gonna wait it out, wait it out, wait it out. Keep waiting it out. Dun, 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 dun. I may wiggle her head back and forth just a little bit to see if I can get her to calm. There we go. See that? See how she came down for me? That's the moment I'm looking for, and that's the moment I'm rewarding. And what clickers allow you to do is reward that. You can do the same process for picking up feet. You know, we have some of these horses that are just, they're really, 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 especially hind feet, and I may get them to where all I'm doing is running my hand down their leg, doing this, they're doing that, and being calm about it. I'll click and reward, right? So it's as simple as that. And then I'm gonna go to the next step, which will be, let me just have some weight off that leg, click reward. I'm not trying to pick it up. I'm just trying to say, can I do the action? And then very quickly, you can turn that into the proper behavior that you want. But again, spending a little bit of time getting your horse ready for that vet visit will make the visit itself much more enjoyable for everyone involved. Let's talk about some in-hand stuff and moving your horse around for your veterinarian. One of the big things that I like to see is that, again, we've got some space. I don't have too big a loop, and I have my lead rope where I can't wrap it around my hand. Again, following all those good Pony Club and 4-H rules when you're doing this will save you some torn pinky fingers later. The other thing that I like is that the horse moves with my handler, but has enough space on the lead rope so that they can move their head. One of the big things I'm looking at when horses are moving for me is I want to see if they have a head nod as they're trotting, and that tells me if we've got a lameness going on. So I'm going to work on walking in a very straight line. We're going to pretend I'm that camera down there that you'll see in a second, but I'm going to walk straight towards the camera. I'm then going to turn one direction at that end, so I'll turn away. Then when I come the other way, I'll turn towards, because I want to do both directions. I want to see how a horse turns in each direction. This is not showmanship or any of the in-hand classes where you always want to turn your horse away from you. Yes, there's a fly out here. For this, I want to see the horse turn in a tight circle both directions. So let's demonstrate. And again, you want to spend some time working with your horse so that this skill is in place before the vet exam. So I'm going to get her attention and I'm going to say, all right, here we go. And we're going to walk. You can see I'm giving her a little bit of space to let her do her thing. I'm walking relatively quickly with purpose, and I'm walking in a straight line. What I don't want to see is that you're walking like a drunken sailor. So I don't want to see really slow, and I don't want to see twisty turny. You can see I can't judge anything here. She's going for flies. Like, I just don't have any of the things that I need in order to see things. So when I come down to this end, I'm going to turn her towards me. And what that lets us do is see how she moves on the front. If you're really astute, you'll notice that she's a little bit off on her left front. And that is because she recently put it someplace it shouldn't have been, like 5 minutes before we shot this video, and she got a little stinger on her coronary band. So now, same thing for trotting, except that there's no way I can talk and trot. So I'm gonna go in a straight line. I will stop, turn it a walk, and then trot again. But I wanna make sure she has enough lead rope in order to do what she wants to do with her head. So, come on. The other thing that we did for this lameness evaluation, this brief little thing we did, is while it's not 100% flat, it's not a graded arena, it's relatively flat ground. We're not asking the veterinarian to evaluate her soundness while we're going up and down. Sorry, I have to catch my breath. We're not asking the veterinarian to evaluate her soundness while we're going up and down hills, around potholes, you name it, we're on relatively flat surface. The other thing that I keep in mind if there's a lameness exam that I'm going to want done is where can I lunge the horse? Do you have a flat area where we can do some lunging? Round pens don't often work great if they've got the trough around the edge. So I do try to put them on a lunge line and put them someplace where I can lunge both directions. So make sure your horse knows how to lunge, walk, trot, canter, both directions. And then think about where on your property you would be able to do that. Okay. So one of the biggest things we're going to talk about in terms of kick management is rectal palpations, because that's always where I'm terrified. So again, following the earlier thing that we said, my handler is going to be on the same side of the horse as me. I always start up here, run myself back, grab the tail. I like to give a little hello. I'm a left-handed palpator, so he's going to stay on the right-hand side of the horse with me. And then see how we can just see her eye so she can see what I'm doing and see what that just did to her butt when she went to move. So again, it's that same principle we talked about earlier where we're keeping her head just a little bit to the right so that if she wants to do something, she moves her butt away from me while I'm in a pretty precarious position. So now I know this horse, so I'm gonna do some things I wouldn't normally, but let's push her back over a little bit. There we go. Okay. So I would grab the tail, simulated palpation here, and I'm going to palpate. So I end up right here. And Justin is going to keep her head ever so slightly, just a little bit more. I always say that I want to be able to see her eye pretty readily. And that gives me an indication of how things are going to go. So again, this is how I stay safe when I'm having to do things back here. In general, for kick management, that's always the way you want to go. So I want the weight on whatever leg I don't want moving. And for horses, that is, when she has her head turned to the right, that puts her weight onto her right hind and makes it harder for her to kick because she's predisposed to moving this leg first to get out of the way. So that's how it's set us up for success so that hopefully I don't get kicked. The other way to help prevent kicks is to pick the head up. So if I have a horse that's being really bad, I'll have my handler, either do like Justin's doing here with his wrist underneath her chin, or I'll even grab the halter like this and we'll push the head way, way up. You'll see that come into play here again. Okay, let's talk about holding the really sick horse, which here we have created by giving Gigi some sedation. So it's not 100%, but some of the things that sick horses really like to do is wobble from side to side and generally just not have a great idea of where the parts of their body are. So on any horse when we're worried about that, one of the big things we're going to do is support the head to help us manage the balance. So a few things that you can do. Again, we're going to follow safety rules. So I take my lead rope and I have it looped like this. not like this, but like this. And I loop it over my arm if I'm going to loop it. I hold the halter on the flat parts on the bottom here. You want to be careful that you don't accidentally put your fingers in rings. That's a great way to get your finger caught in the halter. And then I sort of lock my arms against my body and hold them up. You see how even Gigi just took a step back there, and that's how this works, is you're helping them push that weight onto their hind end so they can better stabilize themselves. The next thing I'll do is if they start leaning, I move their head a little bit into whichever direction they're leaning. So if she's leaning to the right, I'm going to bring her head to the right, again, keeping it up so that I can ask her to sort of move this shoulder back into place underneath her. All of these movements are done with an awareness of where people are around you. When I'm dealing with a really sick horse, I'm really careful that I know as the veterinarian where everyone is, but anyone involved should just really pay attention to who's around. And I have no extraneous people or animals. This is a time when I really don't want to have dogs underfoot. I don't want to have small children underfoot. A really sick horse can be incredibly unpredictable on how they go and where they move. So the other thing that I would say on them is that if you have one of these guys who's really, really ill and they're trying to go down, that's why I hold the lead rope like this. I always, if it becomes inevitable and they're going to lay down, I just let go and let it happen. I try to put myself and owners and the horse into a big open place where there's minimal ways that anyone can get hurt, but being just aware that that can happen and that your job is to let go and get out of the way. We can't control all of what happens with an 11 to 1,200 pound horse, and we can't control always the way they fall, but you can certainly help keep them where they need to be as long as they can by keeping the head up, weight back, and again, turning the head in the direction that they're leaning. All right, let's talk about the most common thing that the average horse owner will hold for, and that's a colic. Like we talked about earlier, we want to make sure that you're on the same side as the veterinarian while I'm doing my exam. In particular, if they're really flaily and they're really wanting to go down, even more important, we're going to use all those strategies we talk about in terms of managing the really ill horse as well. So you're going to want to put everything you've learned into play here. When I'm palpating, you're going to keep the head towards me just a little bit. So I'm a left arm palpator, so you're going to keep her head to the right just a little. If your veterinarian is a right arm palpator, you're going to keep the head to the left just a little bit. And again, that keeps us safe from kicks, basically. So the other place that you guys can be really, really helpful is holding while I'm passing the tube. And it's not necessarily intuitive on how one does this. So I always start with the tube kind of crooked over my nose. I'm going to take my hand over the bridge of her nose, and then I'm going to start the tube. The best way you can help me is by putting your hand over the bridge of her nose, and we're going to try and make sure she stays flexed as I pass the tube. Okay, so we're flexing, we're making sure we don't cut off her airway. And then as I get to the back, you're going to help me really make sure she stays flexed here as I pass it. And if she goes to throw her head, you're going to help turn her head towards me. So you would turn the head, and again, what that does is helps keep everything where it needs to be so that as I pass the tube, it goes in the right hole. Okay, so as I pass the tube, flexing is really important to help me get into that correct hole so that as I pass it, they swallow, they send it up to the top of their airway, and down it goes. And we're going to just keep passing until it gets to the stomach. Then I'm going to do some things to check to make sure it's there. I'll either blow on the tube and see if I can make air bubbles, or I'll put a little water in. What you can do now is I'm going to move this hand down to just holding the tube right outside her nose. You don't want to be too close, and I'm trying to make sure she doesn't wiggle the tube out and she doesn't move it around too much. So it's just a gentle hold while I pump some water in and do all my normal colic routine stuff. There we go. So I'll pump water in, I'll check to be sure if we get anything back out, which is called reflux. Hopefully we don't get any on Gigi since she's not actually colicking. She's just our lucky model today. And then we'll pull the tube out. Okay, so when I pull the tube, I'm going to kink the tube. I'm going to go ahead and take it, and you're going to help try and prevent her from throwing her head again. This is how they like to get nosebleeds. So we try to keep them from throwing their head. Again, look that the fingers are not cutting off her airway in any way. And we just keep gently pulling, and she kept her head down nice, which keeps us from getting a nosebleed. So that is the proper way to help your veterinarian hold for a colic. All right, hopefully this video gives you guys some ideas on things to practice and have ready to go for routine visits for your veterinarian, ways to keep us safe during emergencies, and some things that you can do for training, like clicker training for shots or even just standing still. You want to make sure your horse is good for us to pick up all 4 feet, listen to heart, take a temperature, and then have a little bit of a plan for where it's easiest to manage colics or big emergencies if at all possible. Like a really sick horse, having an open space where you think you can get them to that we can manage everything. With a little help from you and a little preparation, we can all stay safer during routine and emergency exams. Thank you for watching this video. If you've got questions or comments, drop them down below. We'll get an answer to you as fast as we can. And a special shout out to our patrons. Without you guys, none of this would be possible.